Kevin Durant, 2-year, $53 million deal with the Warriors. He obviously opted out. We knew this would be the obvious finish, the return to the Warriors. Just a matter of what this all means. The man that broke the story, Chris Haynes, will be with us in literally seconds to talk about the battle plan here for KD and the Warriors. So if you think about it, how hot is the NBA right now as we're at the top of the hour, 7 Eastern? It's been 3 weeks since we've played a playoff game. It's 3 months until the season starts. And all anybody wants to talk about is the NBA. You broke this story. 2 years, 53. Give me the rationale behind the years and the money.
Well, the years and the money, look, he's taking less. This right now, it could open up some more space for them to go out and pursue other free agents. We don't know that as of now. But what it does do is limit the luxury tax bill that the Warriors have to face, which are able to help the organization be able to keep things together when you think about long term. Now, this is a 2-year deal, player option on the second. And I was told he would likely opt out after that deal as well. And that will set him up for 2 summers from now to be eligible for the Supermax. So what he's doing right now, he's just really sacrificing, setting the standard, because everybody is asking, can this roster stay together? Can this core stay together? Well, Durant is showing that, hey, I may be a rookie to this team. If I can do it, then when deals that come up later down the road, maybe they'll follow suit. Just
as a guy that's covered the NBA for so long, I'm just thinking about this anecdotally as a fan. You ever think you'd see a day there'd be 2 guys on a roster? Because Steph's got his $200 million. Yep. And whatever Durant's Supermax is going to be, whatever the cap is by then, you're going to have like 2 guys worth almost like $500 million. It's going to be like $400 million.
And that's why there are a lot of retired NBA players looking at all this money that's being dished out here and be like, man, why was I born in the 70s? Why was I born in the 60s? Look, that's just the league we're in.
Right.
They're generating a lot of money, and these stars are capitalizing on it. Some are even deferring a little bit. So, I mean, I think it speaks to the Warriors of the selfless act that they display on and off the court, man, and they're trying to keep this thing together for some time.
I just thought the old guys were upset at the lack of physicality. Apparently, it's a lot more than that.
They got a lot of complaints.
2 years, $53 million for Kevin Durant back in the fold as we expect. Expect him to opt out again, which is something we've seen before, and then he'll hit the jackpot big time. Chris, thank you so much. It's been a very busy offseason for the champs because they've made it clear that they indeed want to return in great shape because they feel like this is a dynasty and there's plenty of ways for them to continually keep this core together. Remember, Curry and Clay and Durant, as scary as this sounds, Woj, are still all in their 20s, which has got to be a nightmare for the rest of the NBA. Adrian is here. Let's talk about the biggest fish at the moment, which happens to be Gordon Hayward. Will he be wearing this uniform much longer?
Well, the Jazz are finishing up their meeting with him in San Diego, their front office, their coaching staff. Their pitch, listen, the Jazz expected Boston, Miami were going to present compelling cases. But Utah came in with the close today. This is your franchise. You become an all-star here. This is all built around you. We built an offense that has elevated you to an all-star. And then what they want to help him do is become a second team, a first-team All-NBA player. And they're selling him on a core with Rudy Gobert and now with Ricky Rubio, Rodney Hood, a young, talented core with cap space, with draft picks coming that can compete at the highest level in the league. That's their closing case. Stockton, Malone, Gordon Hayward. That's what they're leaving him with,
wow.
to make it all about him in the history of that organization.
Wow. Mount Rushmore type people for the Utah Jazz. Real quick, you were with us last hour. Everything's changing so quickly. So for our fans that are just rejoining us, I just want to be able to reset. The Rubio situation, getting him to Utah, that was done, you say, in part to placate him. Explain why.
100%. George Hill is a free agent. He met with the Lakers today. They had to solidify that point guard position for Gordon Hayward. They got input from him. He was totally on board with Rubio. Doesn't guarantee they're going to keep him, but they had to do that piece before. Derrick Rose today in Milwaukee. They've got to get salary. They've got to get contracts off to be able to offer him a contract. They had a good meeting with the Bucks today.
Let me ask you about that. So Derrick Rose, obviously the point guard, the youngest MVP in league history. Obviously their head coach is a classic point guard himself. What do you think Jason Kidd and the Bucks see in this guy? I wasn't terribly impressed in his 1 year in New York here.
Well, right now, because the market has really deflated for the point guard. They could potentially get him at a pretty good number in 1 year. Teams like the Clippers have interest, would like to talk to Derrick Rose, but he sees a chance to play for Jason Kidd, to play with the Greek Freak in Milwaukee. The problem for the Bucks is they've got three different contracts they're trying to move to get off. They're going to have to attach a first-round pick to those deals to create space. How much of a price do they want to pay going forward with sending a potential pick to a Phoenix, a Brooklyn, teams who have cap space? They want a good first-round pick. Is that worth it to sign Jason Kidd or to sign Derrick Rose? Right. That's the question Jason Kidd and the Bucks are asking themselves tonight.
And think about what Adrian just said. I mean, you got a guy like the Greek Freak, who won the Most Improved Player. You got the Rookie of the Year in Malcolm Brogdon, a little veteran savvy with the coach that's been to the NBA Finals. It could be something. This guy last year was teammates, of course, with Carmelo Anthony, and he obviously is still out there as a huge potential issue. The no-trade clause, as Phil found, is a little easier to maneuver when you've got it. What's the latest on him?
Well, as we reported last night, Cleveland continues to be a team that he's willing to waive his no-trade for, but Melo has added Houston to that list. And part of the reason is because Chris Paul went from L.A., where Melo had interest, to the Rockets. Right now, though, there's a roadblock there in terms of the Rockets being able to find the right pieces to satisfy New York in a trade. They've looked at third teams, fourth teams. It's a difficult pathway to get a deal done, but if the Rockets are able to, or there's a buyout in New York where he becomes a free agent, Cleveland and Houston are at the top of Melo's list.
Could be a very substantial buyout. One other thing I want to ask you, and I think a lot of Rockets fans are thinking about the Melo-D'Antoni dynamic. He said it's going to have to be a situation where Melo acquiesces when we asked Adrian about it. But considering you've got every GM in that phone right there, I want to know about Daryl Morey. A couple of weeks ago, when David Griffin was on the outs, that was a big story. That same day, or around those same days, he signed a 4-year contract extension. Nobody paid attention to it because of the Griffin situation. What has allowed this guy to swing the way that he has? He got Dwight. He got Harden. He got Chris Paul. He might get Melo. What is the deal with this guy?
Houston has done a great job of being creative with their payroll, creating flexibility with the contracts they have that they can always move out of whoever they have. The deal they did for Chris Paul to get a bunch of non-guaranteed contracts, to put those all in, to do a sign-and trade, or to essentially do a trade with the Clippers before free agency started. It got them their second star with James Harden, and now they're out. Their window is now, and you have to give Leslie Alexander, their owner, credit. He's willing to pay luxury tax. He's willing to go get Carmelo Anthony with $54 million left on his deal. They're going after Golden State in a summer where you're seeing a lot of teams retreating, sort of trying to run the clock out on that Golden State team. They're absolutely a team in Houston that's going for it.
That's why he called it a weapons race. I think he meant an arms race, but I think we know what he meant, and we think we know what Woj means. They're going for it big time, and the best is yet to come, perhaps, for the Rockets. They've met the Warriors. They knew it was going to happen sooner or later, and make it sooner. Durant opted out, but made it clear he would return. 2-year deal with the Warriors worth approximately $53 million. In just moments, we'll find out exactly why it's that particular length and that amount of money and what could be to come. Our Chris Haynes broke the story, and he is here. So the NBA's first $200 million man is Curry, Livingston, Iguodala, West, and now the big one, KD. Tell me why it's 2 years and the money. What's this all about?
Well, look, the money is all about Kevin Durant. Look, that is a selfless act. A guy who's coming off of winning the finals, MVP, coming back and taking about $9 million less than what his max is. He's doing that to be able to have the Warriors go out there and have enough room to be able to bring somebody else in, be a free agency. And I was also told that part of that 2-year deal, the second year, is a player option in which he would likely, as of right now, decline that player option, do it again, and then the following year, he will qualify for the super max. Now, what that means right now for the Warriors, look, you got a guy that's willing to make sure this core sticks together. He declined his option in the first place last month, which allowed the Warriors to retain the bird rights to Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala. And so now you see how they were able to get paid, and Durant is still doing that. Man, I've never seen anything like this. When I got the word this was going down, I was like, what? Excuse me, how much for Durant? We talking Durant here? And I'm surprised. I think like everybody else is.
So we'll call it the Durant discount for now, if you could call $53 million a discount. But after you saw him in the NBA Finals, I think we know exactly what Chris is talking about. So let's think about this macro. You got a $200 million player in Steph Curry. This guy is eventually going to get his money. Iguodala got his money. Livingston and West, smaller deals. Clay's going to have to get his money. Joe Lacob, the owner, has said, money is no object, not just a cliche. We're willing to do whatever. So you tell me, eventually, with the salaries and then the luxury tax, how much money are they going to be shelling out to keep this intact?
Well, it's going to get bizarre, and it's going to get. But look, Zoop, when you have a roster that's put together right now, look, people jumping on them talking about it's a super team. They did it the wrong way. Well, most of their guys are guys that they drafted and they developed into these type of players.
Correct.
And so the Warriors are always going to have the right to pay whatever they want to pay. They'll keep them because those are bird guys. Now, with that being said, couple years from now, when Clay is a free agent, Draymond's a free agent, there will be a tough decision to be made. But look, when you have a guy like Kevin Durant, a newbie to the team, saying, hey, look, I'm going to take less to make sure this gets done, you will have to think that other guys will fall in line when it's their turn to do the same thing, to try to keep this dynasty in place. But that's a problem down the road. As of right now, they're just happy that they have a couple more years to be able to keep this championship core intact.
So it's follow the leader. Again, the bird rights, named after Larry Bird, essentially allows teams to kind of retain their own free agents, giving them an incentive to stay with the team that drafted them. And as Chris said, obviously, most of the Warriors are homegrown. This guy's an exception, but obviously most of them are homegrown. All right, so most of the guys have been taken care of here. They did have 9 free agents, though, when we began at 12:01 a.m. Saturday morning. So in your mind, what's the biggest priority left for the champs?
Next, out of the free agents that the Warriors have, JaVale McGee.
JaVale McGee.
And I know that for a lot of people that may sound strange, but look at what JaVale McGee has done this year. He has been a consistent producer off the bench for the Warriors. He gives them that aerial threat. And that's that's kind of a change of pace when you look at, they start with Zaza Pachulia, a guy who's a rugged defender, but he doesn't get off the ground. When JaVale comes in, that changes the game tremendously. Draymond Green, Stephen Curry is able to get inside the paint, throw the ball up, and allow JaVale McGee to go do what he does. And they play him in limited minutes, which limits a lot of his blunders. And it's just the perfect situation and perfect team for his skill set. And so if they don't bring him back, then you're talking about Zaza Pachulia, possibly, he's a free agent, and then David West. 2 similar guys who stay on the ground.
Below the basket.
Below the basket. You need that above the basket threat in JaVale McGee. I think he's their next priority.
Did you hear that, Shaq? JaVale McGee. You heard it here first from Chris Haynes. A home run move today with the Warriors getting Durant at a discount. Chris, thank you.
We're in really good shape right now to have this opportunity. Pass is the pass. It's definitely fueled us. Why not take care of business?
Redemption. The Warriors are NBA champions again.
That they are. Mike Breen, and according to his partner Jeff Van Gundy, playing that on a loop for many Junes to come may not really be that much of a stretch. But many teams in the NBA stretching every dollar in every conceivable scenario to try and catch them as NBA free agency hits its 3rd day. How will the West be won? With a ton of firepower. You know the deal. What's already been done? Let's take a look. Here's what's next. You got the Hayward watch coming up. Where's Melo headed? You know the deal with the no-trade clause. And the next tier of free agents still to be decided, guys like Otto Porter and Danilo Gallinari. Words that will literally make NBA fans stop. Woj has news. He literally was just on his phone just like a second away. If I could just tear you away from it for 1 second, Adrian is here. First things first, we talked about Hayward here, the biggest, most sought-after free agent available at this moment. What are you hearing? What's your phone telling you?
Well, as we speak, the Jazz are still in a meeting with him in San Diego, where Hayward has an off-season home. Jazz general manager Dennis Lindsey, their coach Quinn Snyder, his best friend on the team, Joe Ingles, who just agreed to a $50 million plus deal the other day. And part of their ownership group drove down from L.A. last night to San Diego, and they're making their case, getting really the last crack here at Gordon Hayward before he's got to make his decision.
Let's think about Hayward here. In his 7 years in the league, he's increased his scoring each of his first 7 years, blossoming into a terrific player. Could be ending up back in Utah. Pretty sure George Hill won't after the Ricky Rubio news. So where might he be headed?
And that was a big part of it. Gordon Hayward loved the idea of Ricky Rubio as their point guard there. That was part of the reason for that trade.
Okay.
George Hill, sources tell Ramona Shelburne and I, he is in L.A. today. meeting with the Lakers. They're in a meeting as we speak with their management, Magic Johnson, Rob Pelinka, and they're discussing a one-year deal at a fairly significant number. With injuries, with a toe injury that lingered all through last year, the market hasn't been kind to George Hill this summer. He wanted a longer-term contract. What he may be able to get here in L.A. now is a partnership with Lonzo Ball for 1 year, and the Lakers keep their salary cap space going forward with Hill. If they do a one-year deal, they're talking seriously. There's interest on both sides. That
toe injury really hampered them in their playoff series against Golden State. So if you're a Utah Jazz fan watching us somewhere around this country, keep your eye on Southern California, whether it's San Diego with Hayward or in L.A. with George Hill. Last thing, Carmelo Anthony, the no-trade clause. We obviously saw what's happened to the Knicks organization with Phil Jackson, Steve Mills ascending possibly all the way to the top. We'll wait to see about that. What is the latest on this guy?
Well, Cleveland had been he'd been willing to waive his no-trade for Cleveland throughout this process. That was the one team. What we reported last night, what changed is Houston is now on that list. He is open to waiving his no-trade if Houston or Cleveland can find an avenue to get a deal done in New York. The reason it's changed with Houston, Chris Paul went from L.A. to Houston, teamed up with James Harden, and that's put Houston in the game here.
I want to ask you one quick follow-up on Carmelo. We're going to keep talking to you because obviously the news is continuing to break here. Real quick on Melo, the previous relationship with Mike D'Antoni in New York fizzled. D'Antoni comes back. He's the coach of the year. Would he have to acquiesce to D'Antoni now instead of the other way around in New York?
I think it is a concern. It is going to have to be talked through. I think the difference and what the Rockets are hoping for, it will not be Carmelo's team. He's going to be a third option on that team. The ball, they're not playing through Carmelo Anthony the way Mike D'Antoni had to play through him in New York. And I think, listen, this is a league about accumulating talent right now to go at Golden State. If he ends up in Houston, management there believes Mike D'Antoni and Carmelo Anthony are going to have to figure it out.
They'll have to coexist. As Daryl Morey said, it is indeed a weapons race. Utah's biggest weapon for the moment, they hope, is Gordon Hayward. Back to Hayward. What's the timetable on this sort of stuff? We waited till 12:01, breathlessly following all your tweets the other night. But now, what's the timetable for him? Because he seems like he's the biggest fish out there at this very moment.
Well, listen, going into this, he had hoped maybe 24, 48 hours. But I think that this is very likely going to be a really difficult decision for him because he's got a great situation in Utah. They've got good young talent. He's become an all-star there. He's playing with a great general manager, a coach who's built an offensive system around him. Miami, Boston are very attractive. There's a lot to like there. So this will take on a life of its own. To predict how long it takes someone to make this kind of a life decision, I don't think this is going to be easy. And I do know in talking to people close to Gordon, he's really laboring over this.
No question about it. Obviously, in Boston, the possible reunion with Brad Stevens, what a story that would be. Or what a better story, maybe a small market franchise like Utah being able to keep somebody of his talent. But let's get back to the phone because I know you've been eyeing it. It's nothing personal against me. I get it. Adrian, thanks a lot. We'll have you back as soon as anything breaks. I have a feeling that might be pretty soon. Adrian, thank you very much. Still to come, deals for Curry, Livingston, Iguodala done. Durant soon, making the Warriors' biggest remaining priority what? You might be surprised at the answer from our Warriors insider. That's coming up in just